Are you tired of the constant anxiety surrounding you and your personal finances? I know I was. Back in 2019, you couldn't get me to open up my personal bank statements. But why is this? Why do we all feel this constant weight on our shoulders surrounding our personal finances? You see, we're told to budget, save, and invest. Actually, give me 1 second. You see, we're told to budget, save, and invest, but nobody really tells us why or how much or how to tie it all together for that matter. You see, and most people are managing their money without truly understanding where they stand financially. But what I realize is that our personal finances are so much more similar to a successful business than we might realize. So, how can we take the lessons learned from businesses and apply them to our lives so much so that we too share our numbers every single quarter? Okay, maybe not that far. Well, today I'm going to show you how to run your personal finances like a successful business would. And we're going to start with the one tool that every successful business uses, and that is the personal balance sheet. So by the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to track your net worth, why it even matters, and how to build a simple, time-effective system that actually is going to work for you. And one last thing, I'm actually going to share with you a couple of extremely useful resources at the very end of this video, and one of them is completely free to download. So stay tuned for all of that. All right, now let's start with a quick refresher on what a balance sheet even is. So let's take a quick look at what the actual balance sheet looks like for a business. So we can see at the top of this, we have assets. Now, assets could include things like cash, accounts receivable, inventory, or even prepaid expenses. Below your assets, you're going to have liabilities, which will be broken down into two different categories. That is current liabilities and long-term liabilities. Now, your current liabilities are those that are due within the next 12 months, and everything else is what's going to be your long-term liabilities. Under your current liabilities, you might have accounts payable, accrued expenses, or unearned revenue. As for the long-term liabilities, well, that's just going to be long-term debt or other long-term liabilities is another common one. At the very bottom, you'll see shareholders' equity. Now, within shareholders' equity, we have investment capital and retained earnings. Now, I like to think of this balance sheet as a pendulum or as a scale that's in perfect balance. And that leads us to the formula, which is assets equals liabilities plus shareholders' equity. So the problem is that most people aren't tracking their finances in any real consistent way or without any real structure. I mean, sure, most people probably know how much is in their checking account or maybe how much is in their savings account or, of course, how much money you're making every year. But there's no real system or structure in place to really tell you how you're doing or what these finances actually mean. And furthermore, it's not tracking the bigger picture. And businesses, well, they wouldn't even dream about doing this. In fact, they have to send out their quarterly reports every 3 months, including a balance sheet, which reviews what they own, what they owe, and what the business is actually worth. And this is the kicker, is that you and I also have personal balance sheets. Whether that lives in our head or if it doesn't exist at all, the reality is that we both have them. We have assets, the things that we own, and we also have liabilities, the things that we owe. And when you add those up together, it really shows you what you're totally worth. Now, I'm going to give you a 5-step and simple process that's going to bring financial clarity to your life using the personal balance sheet. Step 1. This is going to be understanding the formulas. For the business balance sheet, we already told you that formula, and that was assets equals liabilities plus shareholders' equity. But what about for our personal balance sheet? What might that look like? Well, that is going to be the net worth formula. And what we can do is actually just subtract out the liabilities from one side, move it over to the other side to get assets minus liabilities equals shareholders' equity. Only that you are the only shareholder of your own business or your personal finances. So instead of saying shareholders' equity, we can just change that to say net worth. So in total, it's assets minus liabilities equals net worth. It's the same idea and the same formula, but now you are the sole shareholder. Step 2 is going to be listing out your assets. So we're going to start to build out this formula. Some common assets that people typically have are things like checking accounts, savings accounts, investment accounts, retirement funds, maybe a car, or even a mortgage. Furthermore, it's likely that your assets could be tied to other liabilities. For example, when you bought your car, maybe you took out an auto loan, or when you bought your home, maybe you took out a mortgage. The important thing to know here is that we're not going to have to track that now. What's going to happen is we're going to track those loans when we get to the liability section, and they're automatically going to subtract out the real value of what the property is that we list in your assets to give us basically your total equity within that property. So, for example, if you purchased a home for $700,000 and you took out a mortgage for $700,000, well, maybe the value of that home still is $700,000, but maybe by now you've paid off $200,000. So you only have $500,000 left as a liability. Well, then that's $700,000 minus $500,000 to give you $200,000 worth of equity, which should be counted towards your assets. All right, and that brings us to step number 3, which is to list out the liabilities now. Liabilities are the things that you own, and some common ones are things like student loans, auto loans, mortgage, personal loans, or maybe even credit card debt. Now, quickly moving on to step number 4, which is to calculate your net worth. So we take the assets minus the liabilities, and that's going to give us what we're worth. So add up all the assets and get one number, add up all the liabilities and get a second number, and then subtract them, and you'll get what your net worth is. This is your financial scorecard. It's what you're going to use for the entire year to make financial decisions and understand whether or not they're truly smart or not smart decisions. It's completely possible to have a negative net worth here. And if that's you, don't panic or don't feel like you're doing something wrong, but rather just understand that this is one step into building real financial confidence and clarity. So if you do have a negative net worth, say it's negative 200 or negative $20,000, well, then next year you just want to make sure that it's not decreasing. Make sure that you're slowly improving your net worth year over year. And that's what's actually more important than the actual number itself. Last step is step number 5, and that is to start thinking like a CFO does. So now that you know your number, treat yourself like a business. Every single year, typically in the month of January, you should spend about 1 hour to fill out a net worth or a balance sheet statement. Now, I like to do this in January of the next year. For example, if I wanted to get my net worth for 2024, I would wait until January of 2025 because that's typically when the year-end statements are released for 2024. Then what you do is you do the calculation. You get your assets, your liabilities, subtract them out, get your net worth, and put it somewhere that you can continuously track this year over year. Once you start doing this for 2 or 3 or 4 years, and keep in mind, you can also backdate this if you really wanted to. You can go back to 2023 and 2022 if you remember the different accounts that you had and calculate at least an estimate of what your net worth was, because it's likely that these year-end statements are still available for you. But once you get 2, 3, 4 years into this, you can see whether or not your net worth is growing or if it's decreasing. Every single year, you can ask yourself, what am I doing wrong? What am I doing right? What has changed? Why did it change? And maybe what can I adjust this year? And remember that this is not about being obsessive. It might seem like a lot of work if this isn't something that you're constantly doing or if you haven't thought about this yet. But realistically, it should only take 1 hour every single year. That is not that much time to give yourself some financial clarity for the year ahead. Now, I told you guys that I would give you a couple of resources. There's 2 here. The first resource is Monarch Money. Now, if you're familiar with my channel, it's something that I talk about a lot. And before I go into Monarch Money, I just want to let you guys know that I am by no means affiliated with Monarch Money. The only way in which I am is that I use them in my financial planning firm with my clients so that we can track their cash flows, and we can also use it as a guidance to track their net worth as well. So, going into more detail, Monarch Money is a budgeting tool, but they also provide a look at all of your accounts. Now, it's important that sometimes maybe your accounts won't connect to Monarch Money. And if that's the case, you can still use it as a resource to gather all of the other information and then just gather the 1 or 2 documents that maybe don't link with Monarch Money at the end of the year. This will make it much more simple for you. But it's likely that most of, if not all of your accounts will connect to Monarch Money because they have things like connections with Zillow to track the property value of your home. And then they also have connections with VIN Audit to track the value of your car too. In addition, they'll also track the liability. So if you have an auto loan or a mortgage attached to those, you can likely attach those to the Monarch Money Net Worth dashboard too. This is an automated service. A lot of the work is done for you, but I understand that a lot of people actually like to do this themselves. And if that's you, I have another tool for you. And that is going to be our free budget and net worth tracker that you can download in the description. This is a budget and it's a net worth tracker as well. So you can do both, or you can close out the other tabs and just use it as a net worth tracker if you'd like. Head over to the link in the description and download that completely free of charge and get started today. So by tracking your personal balance sheet, even just once a year, you're actually doing somewhat of the similar work as some of the CFOs of multi-billion-dollar companies just for yourself. You're going to provide yourself peace of mind and clarity when you make financial decisions in that new year. Furthermore, you can continuously track to see if historically you have made the right financial decisions, and if you haven't, what do you need to do, or what should you put in place in order to do so. I have no doubt in my mind that if you start tracking your net worth, you are going to be able to make the right decisions and grow your finances in a strategic manner. Now, we mentioned Monarch Money in this video, so if you're interested in that, I actually have a video right here that you can go check out. Now, that video goes over a very simple way and very time efficient way that you can actually budget. I know a lot of people don't like to talk about budgets, but this is one way that makes it super simple for you. So go ahead and go check that out. Thank you so much for watching the video. Really appreciate it, guys. And until next time, cheers.